This is a nurse breaking down Denis Medical, which is a new medical show on NBC or Peacock. It's set in an emergency room. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Josel. I've been a nurse for 10 years. I've worked the ER, worked the ICU, and this has been a treat. This show has been a treat. It's in mockumentary style like Parks and Recs or The Office. And every scene is just so good. Every scene just has so much truth to it that I had to do a breakdown. So this is going to be a breakdown review of St. Denis Medical. I'm going to go over my thoughts, my opinions, things that are true, things that not so true. But yeah, I've never done a breakdown before. So if you like this, let me know. I want to know what you think of the show. Let me know in the comments. The first scene is so good. The first scene just jumps right into it with the nurse, Alex. And so many things are accurate. The patient, who's obviously a drug addict, is in the hall, is getting discharged. And Alex, the nurse, is telling the patient, don't do drugs. And you would think that that's obvious, but no. These are real conversations that I've had with patients too. Sometimes you discharge them from the ER and you're like, don't do drugs. Bye. Knowing full well they're going to do drugs again. And that's just how it is. And it kind of burns you out a little bit because you see people hurting themselves. But again, this is a comedy. We're keeping it light. But you do see, this is true. You do see people hurting themselves over and over and over again. And you see in the ER, frequent flyers. You're not allowed to say frequent flyer anymore. I don't know why you can't say frequent flyer anymore. So if you know why we can't say that anymore, let me know. Because some people are just frequent flyers. Like you'll see them every single day without fail. And sometimes the frequent flyers are so frequent that when they don't arrive, you're like, I wonder if they're still alive. And that's not a joke. You literally wonder, I wonder if Mr. So-and-so is still alive. Because you see them so often. More than your family sometimes. You see some patients more than your friends and family sometimes, which is wild. Anyways, the next scene is Alex in this quick, when she's talking to the camera, quick cut. I think it's just a great scene when she's saying how much nursing is not so glamorous and patients always appreciate us. And then she says, you truly change someone's life, and that's beautiful sometimes. And it is beautiful, but that happens like maybe 1% of the time. And I don't know if it's enough for me to continue bedside nursing. After that is the intro. And it's a musical jingle. It reminds me a little bit of How I Met Your Mother / The Office. Little melody, nothing too crazy, but I thought it was nice. Next is a scene with Joyce, the medical administrator, who is like a bumbling boss, like Michael Scott from The Office. And she's just overly positive. And she talks about what the most infectious thing in the hospital is. And the doctors are hella serious and they're saying C. diff. And she says, no. The most infectious thing in the hospital is a smile, and it's like eye roll, right? Because it's like cringe. And you're like, people can't really be like that, but people are like that. And some of these medical administrators, they're so far removed from bedside. They're so far removed from what it's like to treat patients and what it's like being at the front lines, actually delivering care, that the most, or maybe the most they can do, all that they do is come up with these catchphrases. And that's not a joke, right? I wish that was a joke, but it's funny because it's true. And as someone who's written jokes and who's done stand-up before, a lot of things, especially in the show, are funny because they're true. Comedy shows a reflection of what reality is like. And relatable comedy hits really hard. And I think that's why I love this show this much, because it's so relatable. There's so many times in the show I'm like, that's so true. And these administrators, when they're walking down the hall, we're all in scrubs, blood and poop on our scrubs, and they're walking by and they're like, be sure you remember blah blah blah. And I'm like, shut up, I don't care about that. Can you not see me? I have blood and poop on me, and you're worried about the whiteboards? Anyways, moving on. So taking a quick break. If you like this channel, don't forget to like it. If you like the breakdown, don't forget to like it. If you want to see more, please click subscribe. It really helps out the channel. Thank you. The next scene I like is Alex and I think the nurse, who's obviously a Gen Z or millennial nurse, brighter, fitter scrubs, and just inappropriately talking about the new nurse humping the table. And it's funny because that's kind of what happens in the ER. There's so many inappropriate jokes going on, and someone's like, "You can't do that. It's inappropriate." But we're human, you know. People have personalities. People have jokes, and especially the ER. There are a lot of inappropriate things going in the ER. I worked in the ICU before I worked in the ER, and there'd be inappropriate jokes here and there, but personalities are way more pronounced in the ER. And I remember working in some ERs, I'm like, people get away with those jokes and behaviors. And we get in trouble too, especially night shift. We get in trouble for some of the jokes we say in the nurses station. But we're human, what can we do? That's just how it is. So I really like that. And then also they introduced Ron, which is one of the physicians, making kind of like seeing the inappropriate behavior and just be like, okay, whatever. And that's just so true, because you'll have people who aren't as chill, or as their personality doesn't shine as much at work. And so when they see inappropriate things, they're like, I don't want any part in that, which is totally fine. Next, Nurse Alex talks about being a supervising nurse, which is like a charge nurse. And she talks about how it's a small pay bump, but a large responsibility bump. I've never been a charge nurse of a whole ER, because that's just too much responsibility for like $1 or $2 extra. I've been like a lead nurse or a charge nurse of an area, like the fast track area, which that in it of itself is already a lot of responsibility for me and a lot of stress. I can't imagine being a charge nurse for the entire ER, where you're dealing with ambulances, where you're dealing with everything, patient flow, admits. I don't want that responsibility. And you ask a lot of charge nurses, they don't want that responsibility either. And it's just not even significant of a pay bump to be like, yeah, that's what I want to do. Moving right along, which I think is probably one of my favorite scenes of the show, is ER lobby. And I think her name is Val. She's being the triage nurse. She's in front of the desk, and she has a long line of patients. And that's exactly how it is. She's telling the patients in line, this is a priority-based system. And that's so true. It's not first come, first serve in the ER like a lot of people think it is. People in the ER think, oh, I was here before that person. Why did that person go in? But that's just not how it works. It's a priority-based system. There's a thing called the ESI, the Emergency Severity Index, where you have to assess to see how sick people are in the lobby. And that's why I like this scene, because one of my favorite parts of nursing, of ER nursing, is being a triage nurse, because I think that's true ER. When you take care of patients, like when they're already situated and you're following orders, that's ER also. But I think true ER is really the use of the Emergency Severity Index. And I think that's a skill, being able to assess patients and assigning an ESI number. That's a skill that only ER nurses have. And it takes a while. They don't allow new grads or new nurses to the ER in the triage, which is the front of the ER, to assign that number. You take someone, how sick they are, or how sick you think they are, and you assign them a number, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. 5 is the least sick, and 1 is the sickest. 1 is where you're doing active CPR, and 5 is you don't need to do anything for that patient. Basically, how many resources is this patient going to need? 5 is no resources, and 1 is the most resources, like crash cart, all the doctors at bedside. You're basically a code. And then the gray area is like 2, 3, 4. And that's where a lot of patients are in the ER. I wouldn't say gray area, but a lot of patients in the ER, the mass ones are probably 3s coming in through the front door. But I'm just going on a tangent here. But that's what I like about the ER. You're assigning people a number, an ESI, based on the resources that they need, because we have limited resources in the ER, right? I've been in ERs that have the most limited resources, and I've been in ERs with the most resources, but still they are limited resources because they are finite. There's only X amount of staff, X amount of doctors, X amount of rooms, but the patients just keep coming in. They'll keep on coming in. So it's like, what do you do in that situation where you have all these patients, but only so many resources? And the answer is ESI. And whoever invented ESI, thank you, because one of the best inventions in modern medicine, in my opinion. Moving along. I was like an ESI tangent. Moving right along. A patient says my spleen hurts, and a patient has told me that before. And it's like, where's the spleen even? Like, people don't know where the spleen is. So when people say my spleen hurts, like, what? As a triage nurse, going back to triage nurse, people are yelling at you all the time. My spleen hurts, my toe hurts, my chest hurts, everything hurts. Everything hurts. And as a triage nurse, you kind of have to have no soul, because people will, this older lady in the lobby you'll be like, I want to help you, but you just don't meet the criteria to get bumped and go get seen right away. This is also where we're introduced to Matt, the new grad. And I love how he comes in. I love this detail that he comes in casual clothes, because when it's your first day, you're probably coming in casual clothes. At least that's what happened to me, because you're not doing any patient care and you're probably going to some meetings or some orientation. So I thought that was a nice little touch. Next is Joyce giving a tour of the ER, and we're introduced to Dr. Ron. And I like what he says here. He says he saw the patient for 2 minutes and he's going to chart for 40 minutes. And that is so true. You see doctors come in for not even 2 minutes sometimes, and they have to chart for 40 minutes because that's just what they got to do. And that's the nature of our healthcare system. A lot of people want to see doctors, which, when I go get healthcare, I want to see a doctor too. But the time that we spent with doctors is so limited, and the amount of charting they have to do, it's a ton. We're also introduced to Dr. Bruce here, and he's a tool. He's an absolute tool. And there are characters like this in the ER, and I love it. Or not even just the ER, in the whole hospital. Dr. Ron also talks about how patients are like beat up old cars. You fix them, and then new cars just come in that you have to fix up. And he is obviously burned out. And I've seen a lot of doctors like that in the ER who've been practicing for so long, they're just kind of jaded. Ranking nurse. Next scene, Alex is going to go watch her kids perform Mamma Mia, and she's talking to Serena, which is like the millennial/Gen Z nurse. And this one hit home for me because I know a lot of times my mom tried to go watch my plays when I performed in Mamma Mia. Just kidding, but not. But I remember sometimes she'd have to miss some of my drumline shows because she was so busy at work. So this one, that kind of scene kind of hit home for me. I like the fact that she's about to leave, and then she sees someone putting in a wrong IV, and she's like, I'm not controlling. Thought that was funny. And she also says, you don't have to do things my way, but you have to do them the right way. And she's a rule follower, charge nurse, which is what we need. But also sometimes there are people who are just a little too much, like chill. Like, we get it. You follow the rules, right? And rules should be followed. And Alex talks about this. Rules should be followed because, when you mess up, you take out the wrong organ. But sometimes rules, I'm not going to say rules are meant to be broken because that's cliche. But rules are broken. There's this whole subplot about Joyce getting a mammography machine. Best breast test in the West is the slogan for her new mammography machine. And I thought that was funny because that's kind of what I was talking about it earlier. Some of these administrators do. They come up with these quote unquote catchy catchphrases they're so cringe, but that's what they get paid to do. There's this line about how charting sucks, but we got to do it anyways. Thought that was a good line. And again, some of these lines are so good, and if you blink, you'll miss them. And that's why I'm doing this breakdown, because this show is so good. And then downtime happened, where they said the whole system just went down. And that actually happens when the EMR, or electronic medical record, shuts down, and it's chaos. It's absolutely chaos. They tried to prevent it. But here in this show, they have a meeting about it, like in a separate room, but which is kind of inaccurate. You don't want to do that. You probably just huddle at the nurse's station to see what's happening. But the administrator comes down, And I like her little line that says, "We thrive in this moment," or "We thrive in moments like these." Or there's also the surgeon who starts doing CPR on the keyboard, and it's like people who joke in serious situations. But when Epic is down or the EMR is down, there's a downtime protocol, which is chaos because you have to make manual paper charts for everyone, and no one likes it. Day shift, when it happens to day shift, they kind of panic. Night shift is more ready to deal with it because they have downtimes on purpose for like upgrades or updates or whatever. But exactly how people were frantic and freaking out about the downtime is that's pretty accurate because everything's electronic now and people don't really know what to do when it goes down. I like this touch too with Matt, the new grad nurse, with oversized scrubs because that's how it is sometimes. I've had oversized scrubs, sometimes like comically oversized scrubs, and some hospitals offer scrubs. Like say you get like body fluids on your scrubs, then you end up looking like how Matt looks like in the show. So I thought that was pretty accurate. Nice touch. Nice touch. Let's see what else. Oh, they reveal here that Joyce was an oncologist, so she was a doctor, and now she's an administrator, which is exactly what we were talking about earlier, how some of these administrators, they used to practice medicine, or they used to practice nursing, but now that they become administrators, they've just lost what it's really like taking care of patients. And she says, I treat a different type of cancer now, pessimism. And it's so cringe, but it's like, that's the problems they deal with, the apathy, the pessimism of staff. And I remember drinking that Kool-Aid. I drank that Kool-Aid once when I was part of like unit practice councils and shared governance councils. I used to be like, people need to care more. I was a young new grad, and people need to care more, and we need to care for our patients because that's the right thing to do. And pessimism and apathy are the enemies. I used to be like that, but I got a little jaded myself because reality sets in, and it's like people don't care that much. And it's like, especially as a new grad involved in all those councils, it's like, why am I putting in so much time, effort, and energy into things that people at the end of the day don't really care about? So for downtime, they have all these folders going on. That's pretty accurate. When downtime happens, they have to manually make the charts. Matt's so proud. Matt's so proud that he got vitals. And what else did he do? He got people's orders, like, oh, so-and-so, patient so-and-so wants morphine and oxycodone and asked if we had a menu. That's probably something that happens in the ER because people want morphine, oxycodone, Dilaudid at the same time. And I love how he's so proud to tell the experienced nurses that, and the experienced nurses are like, thanks. And I remember feeling like that joy as a new grad, that joy as a new employee where you just want to help. But everyone is just like, oh, I don't care that much. And so accurate. So accurate. I love that part. Let's see. Oh, I like that we go back to the ER lobby, and it's Val again being the triage nurse. And I like this joke where she says, oh, here's a number who can help you. It's the White House. Ask for Joe and tell them that our healthcare system is broken. And that line is so quick. But it's so good. It's basically, hey, go call the president. You have a problem? You have a problem with our healthcare system? Go tell the president to fix our healthcare system. Because if you didn't know, the healthcare system is broken. Let's see. Moving right along. Oh, there's this scene between Dr. Ron and Dr. Bruce teaching medical students who look super young, and they're just taking notes on everything that the doctors do. I thought that's accurate. I see that all the time in the hospital. Next is the scene where the new grad Matt is about to give a shot to someone in anaphylactic shock. Someone who's allergic to avocados, and they actually made her lips swollen. And she's talking and she's saying, I didn't know I was allergic to avocados. And I thought that by itself is just so accurate. And that happens. People are swollen. Maybe half their face is swollen. They're hella red. Like, oh, I didn't know I was allergic to peanuts. And Matt is told to give a shot. And it's an EpiPen. And I remember giving my first EpiPen, right? And he gives an EpiPen. And he gives it upside down, so he stabs himself. And I remember when I gave my first EpiPen, I was a little nervous. But Serena, the nurse, tells him, go give the EpiPen. And he's like, yeah, I can absolutely do that. And that's kind of how you have to act sometimes because someone tells you to do something and you're like, yeah, I can do that. And you don't want to look dumb in front of the patient. So you're like, yeah, I've done this before. And I mean, not everyone's a good liar. So I don't think I'm a good liar either. So sometimes I'm like, yeah, I've done this before. Knowing full well I haven't. But that's how you learn. You're gonna have so many firsts. First time doing this, first time doing that. I remember my first time getting an IV, and you're nervous. But I thought it was funny that he stabbed himself with epinephrine or the EpiPen, and I think that happens. That happens sometimes. That's so funny. Next scene is Alex in the parking lot, and she's saying, "I love this job, but it's just a job." And she sees someone collapsing, which is the old lady earlier. She sees them collapsing in the parking lot, and I've said it so many times, but this happens. This happens. So her ESI probably wasn't high enough to be seen right away, but then she gets worse as she walks away from the triage nurse, and that happens all the time. And as a triage nurse, you just got to make a call. Can this person wait, or does this person need to be seen right away? And it's like a lot of the gray areas where you're like, well, you're not that sick to be seen now, so you're going to have to wait. But sometimes you make that call as a triage nurse and you end up making a patient wait and they get worse. And it's like with the information given to you at that time, you made that call. And that's kind of what's exciting too about triage nursing. Again, it's one of my favorite parts about being an ER nurse is the triage nursing. But you make those calls, you're like, it was the wrong call, or patient ended up getting worse, and you just kind of have to live with your decisions because you're making those decisions so many times in like an hour in a 12-hour shift. But anyways, this lady collapses. They rush her in on a gurney and go into a room, and this is one of the most accurate codes in the situation, and they have to call it code blue, and this is exactly how it is. It's so raw, it's so unfiltered, and so messy, and it's exactly how it is. Matt wants to help, and he's told to open the door, and he's told to go do the intercom, and he doesn't know how to do it. And it's funny. It's funny, right? It's comedy, but it's so true. I remember being a new grad, my first code, and I just want to help. And I'm a new grad, but I don't know anything. And I like the juxtaposition between Matt like bumbling and then them actually bagging the patient and doing real CPR. They're actually doing CPR with proper form. So good job, NBC. This is so accurate. I got a little emotional during the code scene. I don't know why. Probably because I have trauma from doing all the codes I have in my life. I don't know, but it's just like, oh my God, that's exactly how it is. People are serious. There's alarms beeping, intercoms going, and then people are just bumbling around. Sometimes some people aren't helping. Like Matt didn't really help, right? He's a new grad. He didn't really help in that situation. And there's very unhelpful people in codes, but there are also very helpful people in codes. Doctors come in, orders are being shouted out. They were talking about heparin. They were talking about, the two doctors. This is a detail I like too. There's two doctors that come in, Dr. Bruce and Dr. Ron, who seem to have opposing views of medicine. And they're like, this is what's wrong with the patient. And the other doctor's like, no, this is what's wrong with the patient. And that actually happens in the hospital. And it's a little awkward because you see them fighting and it's like, well, take your ego outside. Like, what are we doing right now for this patient? And you kind of have to remind them sometimes. But in this show, they seem to figure it out. But yeah, that code scene, probably one of my favorite scenes also because it hit an emotional chord. It really resonated with me because that's how it is. That's how it is. The fast pace and people bumbling, people being helpful, people not being helpful. Oh, and I like how Joyce came in and actually did the overhead page and how Matt corrects her like, oh, I already did it. And then she's like, don't tell me how to do this. So I like how Joyce is a bumbling like boss and kind of like a airhead administrator. But when push came to shove, she knew what to call the code blue, right? And that call is what brought the people in. So that was a little nice touch. Moving right along, Matt is sitting down on a wall and Serena comes up and say, hey, don't beat yourself up. You did the best you can. I've been in both situations in this scene. I like this scene. Serena's obviously a more experienced nurse and Matt is the new grad. And as a new grad, even as an experienced nurse, you just kind of beat yourself up because you think you fumbled or you could have done more. But hey, you did what you could. You made the calls that you thought were right. Don't beat yourself up. And then Matt talks about how the medical team is like the Avengers. I mean, it was funny, but it's kind of like a lot of healthcare providers are compared to heroes. And a lot of times we don't see ourselves like that. But, sometimes you do save a life. And that's cool to think about. But when you're in the moment doing things like codes and actually saving someone's life, you don't feel like that. And you never feel like, oh, we're the Avengers. No one ever really thinks that. But I remember being so young, being so naive, full of that new grad energy. And Matt is the perfect image of that, right? A naive new grad who just wants to help. And I remember feeling like that. And I also remember feeling like Alex who's just burnt out, or Serena who's just burnt out also. And I like a little touch where Matt thinks he did so good, and then cut to Serena who said, "Oh, he's definitely getting fired." I thought that was funny. These quick cuts, man, these quick cuts that this show does is the way I would edit a medical drama or medical comedy. And this is the show that I've dreamt about producing. So thank you, NBC, for giving this to us. I think this was one of the best shows I've seen in recent history. Alex goes out into the car. Her car's not starting. There's a nice moment between her and Dr. Ron. And then it ends with Joyce talking about St. Denis and how running it and how she needs to keep running St. Denis. But again, this show has been amazing. Again, this is probably one of my favorite shows. I think one of my favorite medical shows for sure, if not my favorite medical show for sure. Because you have shows like Scrubs, which is a lot doctor based, and the nurse in Scrubs is just kind of like a helper. You have Nurse Jackie, where Nurse Jackie was pretty accurate, right? But she was addicted to opioids. And then you have Grey's Anatomy, where it's all about the doctors. In Grey's Anatomy, doctors are the one taking patient out of the bed and helping them walk, which just does not happen. And that's not clowning on doctors. It's just, it doesn't happen. And a lot of shows, a lot of medical shows, whether they be dramas or comedies that exist in the past, that they're not really accurate, right? There has to be an element of Hollywoodization to all these shows because people don't want to watch real life. That's why they watch shows. That's why they watch fictional shows, right? So, but this show, yeah, there's some inaccurate moments, things that don't really or wouldn't happen, but there are so many accurate moments in this. Not only are there so many accurate moments, there's so many accurate emotions that happen, accurate situations, even the jokes. Some of the jokes in the show are funny because that's exactly how it would happen in real life. And whoever was the consultant, the medical consultant, the nursing consultant for this show, I applaud you. Thank you, St. Denis Medical, for giving us a show that is accurate and doesn't portray nurses as just a spouse or just a partner or just an ancillary staff. Thank you for portraying that and for portraying an accurate Code Blue. Amazing. I rate this episode, this is the pilot, I rate it 10 out of 10. I rate the show 10 out of 10. I like what NBC is doing here. Hopefully the series and season can perform. But yeah, I love the show, and I would definitely watch episodes 2, and I think episode 3 is out at the time of this filming. So what did you all think of the show? I want to know. Let me know in the comments below. This has been so fun to break down, so I might just do more just because they're fun. But let me know what you all think. Did you like it? Did you not like it? What should I do different? Did you disagree with my takes? And that's totally fine. Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, don't forget to like it. And if you want to see more, don't forget to subscribe. So thanks for watching. Till next time.